Children of the Cosmos, Prologue 1-3. As with the universal womb, no mortal has ever directly entered communion with a primordial maggot. Though the children of the cosmos were indeed once maggots themselves, their current forms, as witnessed by humans, are mere echoes compared to their past existences as originators of reality. The contrast between a primordial maggot and a child of the cosmos is so grand that countless depraved fanatics throughout history have willingly given their lives and sanity in the pursuit of restoring the once unimaginable power of their exhausted gods. However, all the depraved rituals and incantations and sacrifices in existence could never truly facilitate the earthly materialization of a primordial maggot. The cultists of Broken Meadow may mindlessly perform their ancient eldritch rites to bring forth such an entity from the past, yet try as they may, the fates of the chaotic beasts are unchangeable. As the gory mist began to settle, the squirming mass of maggots ceased their mindless feast. Their mother was now dead, her mind now thoughtlessly consumed by her deranged children. Silence filled the empty cavern as an immense flood of feelings began to engulf the destitute babies. The cruel and sudden inheritance of sentience would forever mark each maggot that day, for their following thoughts, feelings, and actions would dictate the future they would soon follow. The womb, now void of the impossible center of her immense nervous system, began to decay and rot at a rate that rivaled even the pale worm. As the maggots had taken their final bite, the creeping darkness of necrosis began to spread across the walls of the intergalactic cranial cavity. Her hearts had stopped, causing a cessation in circulation of the vital fuels of reality. Without their righteous sustenance, her cells screamed in desperate starvation, releasing rancid gases into the gargantuan cavities of her body. This increased pressure pushed her precious dregs of remnant blood through the stretched, membranous walls of her bloated arteries, and soon began to spill outwards into the endless cosmos. The expulsion of her rancid blood into the empty cosmos did little to relieve the pressure caused by the putrid gas. The immense force began to liquefy her once limitless vital organs. Reality, or at least the concept known until this point, was ending. The universe had always been a singular creature perched upon the mantle of non-existence, surrounded by an abyss of nothingness. Yet through simple impulsiveness, the basic reality would now cease to continue. Nothing can last an eternity, for try as it might, peace and contentedness may never prevail. The primordial maggots, only now just comprehending the truth behind their bizarre birth, looked upon each other with chaotic kinship, despair, and repulsion. The pressure of the dying womb would soon erupt, causing a cataclysmic explosion that would lead to the facilitation of existence. Some huddled together in squirming clusters, desperate for connection and acceptance. Others slithered into the shadows and rotten crevices of their mother's corpse in futile acts of solitude and rejection. Though the most craven of the maggots turned on each other in acts of savagery and premeditated violence, some driven by insanity, others by hatred, but most by unending hunger. These petty acts of violence, or defiant acts of heroism, or shameful acts of cowardice, they all ultimately mattered not. The time had come to herald the true birth of the universe. The rancid gases could no longer be contained, regardless of how much sloughed flesh and liquefied organs were expelled from her endless orifices. The pressure could not be relieved, and within an instant, the corpse of the universal womb erupted. The force of this explosion devastated the fledgling foundation of reality, Her ocean of flesh spilt across existence, seeping into reality and forming infinite new dimensions parallel to her own. The primordial essence of creation spewed forth billions of years into the once peaceful past, forming entire new sprawling universes within this impossible, paradoxical moment, with each incomparably more evolved and refined than her own. In a forlorn haze of despair, surprise, and revulsion, the primordial maggots were thrown across this layer of the cosmos. 999 squirming masses of emotion and turbulent sentience were spread across the ever-expanding universe. They were heartbroken and uninspired to create anything, as they were now able to comprehend the great cost of their inherited sentience. Their once almighty journeys would eventually cease, and without any further directives or nurturing stimuli, they were left with only one true option. As is the nature of maggots, many of the primordial ones would begin to instinctively burrow deep into the fabric of reality itself to escape the unforgivable acts they had committed. This immense distortion of space and time resulted in incomprehensible fluctuations in the universe. In mere moments, most of the maggots had left the original dimension of the womb and burrowed into others. These alternative dimensions, home to more stable, orderly, and well-established universes, would experience truly cataclysmic events on the grandest cosmic scales, as hundreds of titanic, writhing horrors were unleashed upon them. It is through these burrows into alternate existences that the elements and laws of reality of the eviscerated dimensions were violently thrown into the womb's chaotic universe. Great eruptions of now comprehensible reality spread throughout this layer of the universe, with each burrowing maggot pulling hundreds of millions of galaxies into existence. However, not all maggots had abandoned the once barren dimension of the deceased womb. During the final moments before the eruption, 9 particularly unique maggots huddled together, each drawn to their collective group for reasons only their own juvenile minds could comprehend. As they were violently hurled across the cosmos, the 9 somehow managed to stay together, each determined to remain clinging to their destitute companions. When the force of their cosmic journey eventually waned, the 9 came to an abrupt stop at the edge of existence. Though their minds were young and irrational, each managed to resist the instinctual urge to burrow into a more developed dimension. It is known only to each why they would choose to defy their primordial directives, yet soon this excruciating delay saw results. The 9 watched in shared amazement as the cosmic eruptions of the joining dimensions began, heralding the beginning of the known universe. Meanwhile, across the vast expanse of this new layer of reality, the pale worm continued his endless voyage of rot and decay. Still without sentience, the pale worm drifted between the new, unfamiliar stars, thoughtlessly eradicating all in his path. As he continued to unconsciously destroy this new universe, a forgotten entity watched him from afar and wept. The curator, the only true remaining inheritor of the universal womb's will, watched what she perceived as the corpse of her first child. Though the pale worm moved mindlessly through the void, he was still without pause. As he could never burrow into an alternate dimension, this universe was now finite. The curator knew that with enough time, this precursor layer of reality would eventually be completely destroyed. Though born with immense compassion and an unshakable sense of custodianship, the curator was not a wise or intelligent being. She did not know how to stop the pale worm, and so, drifted across the cosmos for the aid of the maggots who did not burrow. By now, the 9 remaining maggots had dramatically decayed. Without the endless flesh of their mother to feed upon, their physical bodies had rapidly atrophied, and now barely remained within the physical world. Though, regardless of how much time would pass, they never truly faded. Their minds, both expansive and inheritors of the true origin of reality, were now an intrinsic, undeniable fact within this universe. Instead of their mother's flesh, each of the maggots now fed upon each other, not in a sadistic, cannibalistic manner, but through the nourishment of mind, through the therapeutic sharing of emotions, thoughts, and feelings, sustenance of the mind in which the purest fuels of all was devoured, ambition, curiosity, and desire. Each maggot remained in reality not because they continued to feast, but because they simply wanted to exist. They wished to exist, and they wished each other to exist. The 9 stayed together, though each sharing no common traits. They all found a profane companionship amongst each other, defined in the face of both instinct and destiny. The 9 were now embedded within the reality of this layer of the universe. They continued to drift amongst the stars, planet to planet, admiring the strict order and planned creation that had emerged through the burrows of their kin from the ravaged alternate dimensions. Time passed as the 9 continued their cosmic journey together, finding unending wonders amongst the chaotic choir of this patchwork reality. With the passing of unknowable time, the 9 would cease their observation of reality as they now sensed a familiar presence approaching. The curator, after an eternity of anxious searching, had found them. She looked upon the remaining 9 at first in surprised curiosity and disbelief, but soon recognized each as her surviving children. Though their immensely powerful maggot bodies had withered away, now appearing as no more than feeble ethereal shells, they were each still her offspring. The 9 righteous, depraved, and ambitious inheritors of this reality. They were no longer the primordial maggots, for they were now the children of the cosmos.